Welcome to today's edition of Ugwonye on Nigerian Law and Development, which is a part of DPA programs. Our topic today has to do with the ongoing conflict between the southern state governors and the northern state governors of Nigeria. 2 Saturdays ago, the 16 governors of the southern states of Nigeria had a meeting in Asaba, the capital of Delta State. And these governors resolved in 2 important respects. First, they resolved to ban open grazing. Secondly, they passed a resolution demanding the federal government to commit to restructuring of Nigerian politics. Immediately these resolutions were announced, the governors of the northern states protested. They attacked their colleagues from the south and accused them of insincerity and betrayal. Since then, so much has happened. The Attorney General of Nigeria made a very rare appearance on channel television in which he criticized the southern state governors and made very profound statements which in themselves triggered additional agitation and discomfort among Nigerians. In this controversy, you will see the main contention in Nigerian politics, the dispute between the North and the South, the accusation that the North is dominating the South in an abusive manner, and the quest in various sections of the southern states for independence and secession from Nigeria. So all these things came together in this very little or apparently inconsequential event of resolutions. First and foremost, before we deal with these resolutions, let us ask, what is the legal capacity or the legal status of the southern states governors or the northern states governors? What does that mean? In law, there's really nothing like southern states governors. All you have is an aggregation of the individual governors. Their resolution is not law. It is an important political statement. So when you resolve to ban open grazing, at this point, it's just a political statement. That resolution itself is not a law, and it's not a law that established an offense. So nobody can be arrested and prosecuted for violating a resolution. However, it is very important that they made this resolution because it signals to the federal government that since the federal government could not decisively address the problems attributed to open grazing, the southern states governors will do something. They will preempt the government. So it is something for which many people in the South, who for these years have been protesting the abusive activities or even criminal activities associated with open grazing, they are happy that their governors are waking up at the last minute to say something about it. But of course, as we have hinted, a mere resolution is not law. A mere resolution is not something by which you can bind anybody. And that is why the governor of Abia State recently emphasized that the resolution must be enforced. By that statement, he was acknowledging the fact that a mere resolution is not sufficient. And we're going to ask, how would these governors enforce these resolutions? They will be required to enact laws through their respective legislative arms. And these laws will contain punishment for anybody caught engaging in open grazing. So far, the only governor that has done that in Nigeria is actually not one of the southern state governors. He is the governor from Benue State. He is the one that had gone so far in doing something more concrete to prevent open grazing. So, you may wonder, why would the ban of open grazing trigger so much protest and anger from the north? Why would that be the case when it's a known fact that open grazing leads to clashes between herdsmen and farmers, which in turn leads to dangerous activities like violence and bloodletting and bloody clashes with villages and community members. It should have been something the federal government had taken care of a long time ago. Unfortunately, the federal government did not take care of it, and we thought it was because the federal government was too busy or was doing its best but hadn't gotten to that point. But after listening to the argument of the Attorney General, it became clear that the federal government actually encouraged open grazing, that the federal government actually supported the violence and clashes and destabilizing problems caused by open grazing. We did not expect the Attorney General of Nigeria to react in the manner he did. First, the Attorney General, let's consider his argument to understand the issues. He said first that banning open grazing was a violation of the freedom of movement, the rights of free movement by herdsmen. As a lawyer, I've never heard anybody make that sort of argument, because it suggests that freedom of movement is a freedom that can be exercised without restrictions, without conditions. There is no right in the Constitution that does not have some guidelines or restrictions or conditions under which they could be exercised. Your freedom of movement does not authorize you to engage in trespass. Your freedom of movement does not allow you to enter into areas you are not supposed to enter. For herdsmen, freedom of movement could never have authorized them to invade farms and attack farm owners and destroy crops and move on to have conflicts with communities. So for the Attorney General to speak of freedom of movement in that context, and given what we know about herdsmen, and given what we know about open grazing, is an indication that the federal government of Nigeria actually endorsed not only the open grazing, but all the crises attributable to it. That was terrible. Then again, the Attorney General made a second significant blunder. He compared the activities of herdsmen to motor parts trading, spare parts trading in the northern part of Nigeria. Of course, if you go to Kano and Katsina, 90% of the traders in spare parts, auto spare parts, are from the eastern part of Nigeria. But these are legitimate businessmen who rented spaces, doing their businesses without violating any law, without resulting in clashes. In fact, they are largely welcome in the areas where they operate. Their presence in those states have not been associated with any distinct pattern of criminality. So how could our Attorney General make that comparison? Indeed, one is left with the conclusion that this Attorney General will go to all extent to advocate for absurdity. Many Nigerians have been offended more by the pronouncement of the Attorney General, and they are calling for him to resign or for him to be removed from office, because this is absolutely something unbecoming of an Attorney General. Indeed, it's unbecoming of any lawyer. His argument was so asinine, so basic, that people began to wonder, how did he become a lawyer? How did he become Attorney General? We share that concern. We share that sentiment. But there is something the Attorney General said which was true and which had been forgotten, obviously because people were more angry about the absurdities he committed in his other statements. The Attorney General said that the southern governors are not sincere. They are not sincere in their fidelity to the Constitution. That the southern governors do not obey the Constitution. And he pointed out three important illustrations. First, the southern governors do not want to respect the constitutional provision as regards the financial autonomy of the judiciary in their state. They do not want to respect the Constitution as regards the financial autonomy of the legislature. They do not want to obey the Constitution as regards the financial autonomy of the local government. The Attorney General made a very valid argument that you cannot choose and pick when it comes to your fidelity to the Constitution. You must be able to show overall commitment to law and order and democracy and constituted order. Our governors failed. Our governors in the southern states, like their colleagues in the north, turned their states into their government into a form of dictatorship. They deny the constitutional requirement or constitutional provisions of separation of power. They deny every notion of independence of the judiciary by controlling the judiciary. In other words, in these states, you can never win a case against the state government, however good your case is, and however wrong the state government is, because the judges are in the pocket of the governors. If any judge dares make an order against the interest of the government, that judge is in trouble. So these governors themselves have violated the Constitution and the will of the people in many important ways. When they now come and talk of restructuring, it is right to question their sincerity. It is right to ask, how serious are these people? In fact, one can say, without fear of contradiction, that these governors really don't care about restructuring. They are pushed to make these statements because they could see they are losing legitimacy. They are losing trust and credibility as more and more agitations or call for secession and for breakup in Nigeria. So invariably, they had to take a position to align themselves a little bit with their people. But also, this sends a message to the federal government, the president. Time has come when it's no longer possible for you to hide your head in the sand. Nigeria must address its problems. If the federal government cannot do its work, the governors will do its work. But let nobody make a mistake of thinking that this resolution solves the problem. No, it only highlights it. If the Attorney General maintains the position that any law against open grazing is a violation of the Constitution, that means that the Attorney General is signaling that if people who are arrested to be prosecuted for violating any law based on open grazing, the Attorney General is going to exercise his constitutional power and step in to block any such prosecution. So it is a quagmire Nigeria is in. It's important these discussions are going on. For us in the EPA, we want to have an opportunity to participate in this debate and making sure that our members are properly informed as to every element of it. So banning of open grazing is important because almost open grazing has become inherently dangerous activity because it's associated with clashes and violence in the country. So banning it is a wise move. Going forward to take measures to enforce it and make sure it translates to something that can actually stop people, that is the next target. And that is important. And I hope the governors will go all the way. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to seeing you on our next program.